Taking you across to the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas, it seems like Joe Biden and Netanyahu have had a telephonic conversation. Some fresh videos that the IDF has released. Meanwhile, some Gaza-centric stories as well, even as the United Nations Security Council now focusing heavily on Gazan aid. But that's not all. We will be taking you across to Iceland as well, where experts have made their way to understand and study the tectonic shift. Why are they moving away in the Reykjanes Peninsula and the volcanic and seismology activity in the entirety of the region? Climate change is going to be our focus. Some stories from the world of infotainment and sports. But first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, let's shift our focus to what's happening back at home. Some domestic movements, some political developments, and first and foremost to Maharashtra, where in the latest COVID update for the country, there is a concerning resurgence in the cases with a concerning new subvariant JN.1 that had first emerged in Kerala. Now we're learning that we've picked up cases from Maharashtra, from Karnataka. Now originating from the Omicron strain, the JN.1 carries an additional mutation in the receptor binding domain, showcasing higher immune evasion. Notably, the World Health Organization has classified JN.1 as a variant of interest, and globally, the WHO has noted a 52% rise in the new cases in just the past month. The country reported 752 new cases, with a spike in active cases to 3,420 as per the update by the Health Ministry. Addressing the concern, the INSACOG chief, Dr. N.K. Arora, assured no extra vaccine dose is required for the JN.1 presently, and also emphasized on precautions for older individuals and for those with comorbidities. Even as the COVID problem persists, the pollution problem is another thing to deal with, especially for the residents of the national capital. The air quality in the national capital hit the severe levels with the overall air quality index reaching about 500 by yesterday evening. Now, according to the Central Pollution Control Board, various areas recorded alarming AQI levels, including Anand Vihar at about 480, Ashok Vihar at above 450, and Shadipur at 480. Now, the deteriorating air quality has prompted the centre to impose restrictions banning non-essential construction and certain vehicle types. Unfavorable weather conditions, including fog and low wind speed, it's all contributing to the spike in the pollution levels. Flight operations at the Indira Gandhi International Airport were disrupted due to the thick fog affecting both international and domestic flights. The city is experiencing a minimum temperature of 9.6 degrees Celsius, with the Indian Met Department predicting moderate fog during the day and a maximum temperature around 23 degrees Celsius for the day today. Let's take you straight to my colleague Puneet to give you more details.
पहाड़ों पर हो रही बर्फबारी ने दिल्ली में भी ठंड बढ़ा दी है। दिल्ली के लोग अब ठिठुरने लगे हैं। दिल्ली की सर्दी सितम ढा रही है। दिल्ली में रविवार की सुबह 6 बजे औसत तापमान जो 8 डिग्री सेल्सियस दर्ज किया गया है और सुबह दिल्ली के कई इलाकों में घना कोहरा देखने को मिला है। मौसम विभाग की माने तो अगले 3 से 4 दिन दिल्ली में घना कोहरा पड़ेगा। एक तरफ दिल्ली में कोहरे की मार तो दूसरी तरफ दिल्ली में वायु प्रदूषण की मार लोगों को झेलनी पड़ रही है, यानी दिल्ली वालों को डबल अटैक झेलना पड़ रहा है। दिल्ली इस समय गैस चैम्बर में तब्दील हो चुकी है और दिल्ली का वायु प्रदूषण काफी खतरनाक स्तर तक पहुंच चुका है। शनिवार की अगर बात करें तो दिल्ली में जो एयर क्वालिटी इंडेक्स है वो औसत 450 रिकॉर्ड किया गया, जो कि अति गंभीर श्रेणी में आता है। और दिल्ली के कई ऐसे इलाके रहे जहां पर AQI का लेवल लगभग 500 के आसपास पहुंच गया और लगभग सभी इलाके जो दिल्ली के थे वहां पर तो AQI 400 पार ही रहा, यानी कि जो दिल्ली वाले हैं वो जहरीली हवा में इस वक्त सांस लेने को मजबूर है। दिल्ली में मौसम की अगर बात करें तो काफी ज्यादा ठंड पड़ रही है और यही वजह है कि जो पहाड़ी इलाकों में लगातार बर्फबारी हो रही है उसका सीधा असर मैदानी इलाकों में पड़ रहा है। काफी ज्यादा ठंड बढ़ चुकी है और कोहरा इस वक्त दिल्ली में काफी ज्यादा पड़ रहा है। तमाम इलाकों में कोहरा पड़ रहा है, लेकिन वायु प्रदूषण का स्तर भी काफी ज्यादा बढ़ चुका है। दिल्ली में शनिवार की बात करें तो हवा जो है वो दक्षिण पूर्व दिशा की ओर चल रही थी और जो हवा की गति थी वो लगभग 4 किलोमीटर प्रति घंटा रही और यही वजह है कि दिल्ली में वायु प्रदूषण में काफी इजाफा रहा और मौसम विभाग की माने तो हवा की गति कम होने और स्थानीय कारकों की वजह से जो वायु प्रदूषण है वो लगातार बढ़ रहा है। लेकिन रविवार को भी जो हवा है वो दक्षिण पूर्व दिशा की ओर चल रही है और हवा की जो गति है वो काफी ज्यादा कम है, यानी लगभग बात करी जाए तो 4 से 8 किलोमीटर प्रति घंटे की रफ्तार से चल रही है। लेकिन AQI यानी एयर क्वालिटी इंडेक्स काफी खराब स्थिति में दिल्ली का पहुंच चुका है। दिल्ली का रविवार को जो AQI है औसत वो 418 है, लेकिन दिल्ली के अलग अलग इलाकों की बात करें तो काफी गंभीर स्थिति बनी है। आप देख सकते हैं जो CPCB का समीर ऐप है उसके मुताबिक जो अलीपुर है वहां पर AQI इस वक्त 418, शादीपुर में 450, द्वारका में 436 और इसके अलावा ITO में 423 है, RK पुरम में 431, पंजाबी बाग में 445, आया नगर में 346, इसके अलावा नॉर्थ कैंपस 404 AQI है। JLN स्टेडियम की बात की जाए तो वहां पे 406 है, जबकि नेहरू नगर में जो AQI है वो 451 है, द्वारका में 424, पटपड़गंज इंडस्ट्रियल एरिया की बात करें तो वहां पर वायु गुणवत्ता सूचकांक 426 पे है, जबकि अशोक विहार में 440 है। तो दूसरी तरफ दिल्ली में इस वक्त कड़ाके की ठंड भी पड़ रही है। जो तापमान है वो रविवार की सुबह 6 बजे 8 डिग्री सेल्सियस दर्ज किया गया है। कोहरा काफी ज्यादा है और दिल्ली वालों को अगले 3 से 4 दिन कोहरे, ठंड और प्रदूषण की मार अभी झेलनी पड़ेगी।
Well, smog or fog, you can decide for your own selves, albeit if you step out, do wear a mask. Shifting our focus here, the agitation for the Maratha reservation is once again on the boil. Maratha Quota activist Manoj Jarange has announced that he will start an indefinite strike at the Azad Maidan in Mumbai from the 20th of January to intensify his demand for the community's reservation. Addressing a massive rally in Bid district in the Marathwada region, Jarange claimed that the crores of people from the Maratha community will come to Mumbai on the 20th of January. Meanwhile, Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, in a video message, said that the Supreme Court has accepted the curative petition filed by the state government pertaining to the Maratha reservation issue. Shinde also informed that the Supreme Court has scheduled a hearing on the same matter on the 24th of January and has quote-unquote opened a window of hope for the Maratha community. Shinde asserted that his government was committed to giving reservation to the Maratha community and urged people to observe restraint. And next up, latest from the GRAP III airport in France that now holds a group of stranded passengers, with the youngest being a 21-month-old toddler. Notably, there is a surge in Indians attempting to cross the Mexico-US border this year. 303 Indian passengers, originally bound for Nicaragua, face confinement at the airport after their charter flight was grounded. A French judge with authority to extend detention by about 8 days is set to hear the case today. Now, it is important to note that there has been continuous reports of surge in Indians attempting to cross the Mexico-US border. The Indian embassy in France has secured consular access, actively assessing the situation at the moment. Amidst the ongoing ordeal, 10 Indian passengers seek asylum, with 6 minors on board expressing a similar interest. These developments underscore the complexities and vulnerabilities within the stranded passengers' predicament at the moment. 303 Indians were on board that Nicaragua-bound Airbus flight that was grounded in GRAP III airport in France. And moving on, an assault drone launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels targeted an Indian-bound crude oil tanker in the Red Sea, as reported by the US military today. The vessel, MV Sai Baba, flying the Gabon flag and carrying Indian crew members, fortunately sustained no injuries. But despite the absence of casualties, the tanker issued a distress signal to a nearby US ship. As disclosed by the US Central Command on X, formerly known as Twitter. The attack transpired at approximately 10:30 p.m. yesterday, closely following another incident where a tanker off the Indian coast fell victim to an assault attributed to Iran by the United States. Now, 2 vessels, including the Norwegian-flagged chemical tanker MV Blaminen, communicated to a US naval ship patrolling the southern Red Sea that they were under attack. The US military revealed that MV Blaminen narrowly avoided a Houthi drone, while the second vessel that was targeted was a crude oil tanker MV Saibaba. According to the US military, the MV Saibaba, a crude oil tanker owned by the Gabon nation and flying the Indian flag, experienced an assault from a one-way attack drone, resulting in no reported injuries at the moment. Responding to the distress calls, the USS Laboon DDG-58 intervened in these particular attacks. And now, backed by Iran, the Houthi rebels have been implicated in the recent attack on MV Pluto off the Indian coast as well. The assault, attributed to Iran, is part of a pattern where Houthi rebels supported by Iran have consistently targeted ships in the Red Sea. The rebels assert that their actions are in solidarity with Gaza, specifically targeting vessels linked to Israel. The attacks on Saturday marked the 14th and the 15th instances of Houthi rebels targeting commercial shipping since the 17th of October, according to the US military. Meanwhile, in a recent incident, a merchant vessel carrying a crew of about 23, including an estimated 21 Indians, faced a suspected drone attack in the Arabian Sea off the Gujarat coast. The US Department of Defense disclosed on Sunday that the aerial attack originated from Iran. Now, according to a Pentagon spokesperson, the motor vessel Pluto that we were just talking about, a Liberia-flagged, Japanese-owned and Netherlands-operated chemical tanker, was targeted around 10 a.m. local time in the Indian Ocean. This is 200 nautical miles from the coast of India. The strike was executed by a one-way attack drone launched from Iran. The Indian Navy sent a P-8I patrol aircraft and a warship to aid the Liberian-flagged ship Pluto, which began its journey with crude from Al Jubail in Saudi Arabia on the 19th. And next up, India, a nation with over 140 crore people, carries diverse financial stories within its families. Ever wondered about the average monthly income of an Indian household? Or where do these earnings go? Where are they allocated? Money9 has unveiled insights from India's Pulse Personal Finance Survey, offering a comprehensive look at the nation's financial landscape. Now, take a look at this. Understanding what's happening. In 2023, the average monthly income for an Indian family surged from rupees 25,910 to rupees 23,000 back in 2022, marking a notable increase of about 2,910 rupees per month. Now, shifting focus to the top earning states, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Chandigarh took the lead, surpassing the national average income. That's what it looked like in 2022. Meanwhile, in the terms of the least earning states, conversely, Bihar, Odisha and Jharkhand ranked lowest in earnings, falling below the national average. This is what it looked like in 2023, and back in 2022, it was Bihar, Jharkhand and West Bengal, the least earning states. Now, financial position of families, that's also something interesting that has come out in the survey. 93% of families managed to cover household expenses, whilst a small 7% faced challenges in meeting their financial needs. When analyzing the financial trend over the last 5 years, 30% of families experienced improved financial conditions, whilst 54% said they maintained stability, but another 16% said that they faced deteriorating financial circumstances. But let's also try and understand, where do these Indian families end up saving? Take a look at this. Delve into where Indian families are stashing their savings. In 2023, the majority, 77% like you can see, parked their savings in banks, a noticeable jump from the previous year, 60% from the 15%. Now, NBFC witnessed a slight uptick from 7% to 8%. Meanwhile, shifting our focus to how families are cashing their savings, where are they spending their money? Take a look at that. 67% opted to cash, while 33% refrained from doing so. Moving on, to understand why majority of Indian families choose to cash their savings, it is important to analyze the reasons behind cashing their savings. Where are they saving essentially? Now, medical treatment tops the list at 22.3%, followed by business losses at 15.2%. Education, another hefty damage to anyone's wallet, stands at 11%. Marriages, another costly affair these days, stands at 8.2% and loan repayment at 8.2%. Again, tragically, 2.3% is attributed to the demise of the breadwinner. But let's also take a closer look at where Indian families are directing their financial investments. These are cities where families buy most of the insurance policies. Now, in 2023, Madurai topped this list, families purchasing insurance policies at a staggering 84%, followed by Amravati at 79%, and then Aurangabad at 76%. On average, 27% of the families opted for insurance, marking a significant rise from the previous year's 19%. Meanwhile, these are cities, because when it comes to investing in gold, Bengaluru led the pack in 2023 at 69%, trailed by Thiruvananthapuram at 66% and Darjeeling at 59%. A lot of south states and cities dealing heftily in gold. The average gold investment stood at 21%, showcasing an increase from the previous year's 15%. Well, time for us to slip into a quick break here, but help us let you stumble on Money9's new application. It's your secret weapon for mastering finance and thriving in the economy. Take a look and we'll be back.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
Next up, our segment on the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being. Well, now, Israel battled Hamas terrorists on Saturday in pursuit of its elusive goal of full control of northern Gaza after the UN Security Council appealed for more aid for the Palestinian enclave, but stopped just short of demanding a ceasefire.
Doctors attend to wounded patients in a tent in Jabalia as the fighting in northern Gaza raged on Saturday. Residents reported persistent aerial bombardment and shelling from Israeli tanks, which they said had moved further into the town. It follows an appeal from the UN Security Council for more aid for the Palestinian enclave, though it stopped short of demanding a ceasefire. U.S. President Joe Biden spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Saturday about the situation in Israel and Gaza.
I had a long talk with Netanyahu today, and it's a private conversation.
While leaving for Camp David, Biden told reporters he did not ask Netanyahu for a ceasefire. Israel's main ally has kept up its support while expressing concern over the growing casualty toll and humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Netanyahu's office said in a statement the Israeli leader, quote, made clear that Israel will pursue the war until all of its objectives are fully met. At least 201 Palestinians have been killed over the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to over 20,000 during the 11-week conflict, the Palestinian Health Ministry said on Saturday. Thousands more bodies are believed trapped under rubble. Hamas's armed wing said it had destroyed 5 Israeli tanks in the area, killing and injuring their crews after reusing 2 undetonated missiles launched earlier by Israel. Reuters could not independently verify the report. Israel said more than 140 of its soldiers have been killed since it launched its ground incursion in response to an October 7 rampage by Gaza's ruling Hamas militants. 1,200 people were killed and 240 hostages were taken back into the enclave. Hamas said on Saturday it had lost contact with a group it said was responsible for 5 of the Israeli hostages due to Israeli bombardment. More than 100 hostages are still believed to be in Gaza.
Meanwhile, over the weekend, the Israeli army released a video that showed an extensive network of tunnels that were built by Hamas. Now, the tunnel complex, and as you can see, the dogs unit have now been mobilized. The tunnel complex has electricity and blast doors inside it. The Israeli army is sending in dog squads with cameras to explore the tunnels now. Meanwhile, the United States intercepted 4 drones launched from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen, targeting a U.S. destroyer in the southern Red Sea. These incidents mark the 14th and the 15th attacks on commercial shipping by Houthi terrorists since the 17th of October, according to U.S. Central Command. Now, the CENTCOM tweeted about the same, saying that on the 23rd of December, 2 Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles were fired into international shipping lanes in the southern Red Sea from Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen. No ships reported being impacted by the ballistic missiles. The CENTCOM added that the USS Laboon was patrolling in the southern Red Sea as part of the Operation Prosperity Guardian, the OPG, and shot down 4 unmanned aerial drones originating from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen that were inbound to the USS Laboon. There were no injuries or damage in this particular incident. Now, the Houthi actions disrupting global trade in response to Israel's Gaza conflict include a near miss on a Norwegian-flagged tanker and an attack on a Gabon-owned Indian-flagged crude oil tanker. Additionally, 2 Houthi anti-ship ballistic missiles were fired into international shipping lanes, but no ships were reportedly impacted. The U.S. initiated Operation Prosperity Guardian, a collaborative effort with over a dozen countries to patrol the Red Sea waters and counter Houthi interference in the Bab al-Mandab Strait. Shifting our focus here, what does 2024, the next year, have in store for us? Our heralding segment and stories about it next. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court on Friday declined to immediately decide former President Donald Trump's claim that he cannot be prosecuted for trying to overturn his 2020 election defeat, allowing a lower court to continue reviewing the issue. The justices, rebuffing an extraordinary request by U.S. Special Counsel Jack Smith, refused to effectively leapfrog a lower appeals court to speed up a final ruling on Trump's claim of criminal immunity ahead of his trial, due to begin in March. Trump hailed the decision on his Truth Social site, where he wrote that the Supreme Court had, quote-unquote, unanimously rejected deranged Jack Smith's desperate attempt to short-circuit the Constitution. The court issued its decision without an explanation in a brief 1-page order. No justice publicly dissented. The justices could still decide to consider the issue later on. And from the United States, moving on to Russia, where former TV journalist Yekaterina Dontsova was barred on Saturday from running against President Vladimir Putin in the election next March because of alleged mistakes in her application to register as a candidate. Video from a meeting of the Central Electoral Commission showed members voting unanimously to reject her candidacy. The move came only 3 days after Dontsova, 40 years old, had presented documents to the commission in support for her bid. She had planned to run on a platform of ending the war in Ukraine and freeing political prisoners. The immediate torpedoing of her campaigning will be seized on by Putin's critics as evidence that no one with genuine opposition views will be allowed to stand against him in the first presidential election since he launched the war in Ukraine. They see it as a fake process with only one possible outcome. The Kremlin, on the other hand, says Putin will win because he enjoys genuine support across the society, with opinion poll ratings of around 80% in Vladimir Putin's favor. Meanwhile, rising sea levels pose a grave threat to Nigeria's coastal regions, compelling over 80% of Ayatollah's population in the southwest to abandon their homes completely. For over 8 decades now, Ayatoro flourished, drawing more than 30,000 residents and fostering thriving fishing, textiles and shipbuilding industries. However, despite being originally situated several kilometers from the sea, the town has steadily succumbed to encroaching seawater over the past 2 decades. In recent years, seawater invasion has become increasingly common, causing widespread property loss.
I was on bed when the water came up. So around 3 o'clock in the midnight, I just went, it was someone that even called me that water is already in my frontage. So when I just moved out, everywhere was full of water. So I have to rescue some of my stuff from there. Like 2 days, everything just go inside the sea, so we can't take anything from that building.
The first thing you will notice is that the water will be coming up. It will be coming up, then followed by the wave. The wave will be increasing until you will no more come near it. Nobody will be able to come near it. More than 3/4 of this community has been taken away by the sea. More than 3/4.
Time for us to slip into a quick commercial break here. Lots more continues right on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined, and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining, and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है मनी 9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9+. Download now.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Shifting our focus to some other global developments where winter is breaking records in northern Asia, with temperatures in China and South Korea hitting new lows in the recent weeks. The prolonged and notably colder temperatures hint at a potential disruption in the usual circular flow of cold air around the Arctic, known as the polar vortex. Now, this natural barrier normally keeps Arctic air from venturing into lower latitudes. Met experts attribute North America's occasional bitter cold snaps to the polar vortex's disruptions. This high-speed atmospheric current, typically moving from west to east at altitudes of about 50 kilometers, has faced scrutiny for its wavering behavior. Meanwhile, Shanghai is currently witnessing its coldest December period in about 40 years as the Chinese financial hub faced weather warnings of low temperatures and strong winds, marking the onset of a prolonged cold spell.
When we step outside, we will wear a hat and gloves. Today I also changed to a longer, thicker down jacket. For little children, you dress them with things like face masks because it's really cold. It's really easy to get sick when you breathe cold air. And then there's a hat and windproof clothing, especially for children. I will also give them a scarf like this.
Cold. Today is extremely cold. It is colder than the past few days.
Shifting our focus to Europe, and Madrid's Regional Assembly on Friday passed a proposal by the Spanish capital's ruling Conservative People's Party, the PP, to strip back protections for transgender people, sparking outcry from the opposition and the LGBTQ activists.
Madrid's Regional Assembly on Friday passed a proposal by the ruling Conservative People's Party to strip back protections for transgender people, sparking outcry from the opposition and LGBTQ activists. The bill amends 2 LGBTQ laws passed in 2016. Under the reform, discriminating against workers based on gender identity or sexuality, and beating someone without causing injury based on gender identity or sexuality are no longer punishable offenses. The PP's Monica Levin defended the reform as a way to stop what she described as social engineering, and said the reform returns, quote, rigor and science to the protection of LGBTQ people. Carla Antonelli, a trans assembly member for the left-wing Mass Madrid party, called the bill an abomination and told reform supporters, quote, you will have blood on your hands. In the bill, lawmakers replaced the terms trans people and gender identity with transsexuals and transsexuality, terms that activists say are outdated and demeaning. Under the reform, the region's underage trans people will now need an evaluation by a pediatrician and a psychologist or psychiatrist before seeking transition-related health care. The option of changing names on regional documents before adapting the national ID was also eliminated. In December 2022, Spain passed a nationwide bill allowing transgender people aged 14 and over to change their legal gender without the need for psychological or other medical evaluation. Most of Spain's 17 regions have laws for the protection of LGBTQ people. Madrid is the first to roll back such legislation. Mass Madrid said it would ask Spain's human rights ombudsman to challenge the law before the Constitutional Court.
Now, from Putin's uncanny encounter to campaign trail bots, here are the week's top stories from the AI revolution. Explore the rise of bots in the upcoming US presidential election with this report as well.
From when Putin met his double to how bots are gearing up for the US presidential election.
And I'm an artificial intelligence volunteer for...
This is Generation AI. Vladimir Putin has met his AI twin. At his annual news conference, the Russian leader was posed a question by a digital version of himself. Aptly enough, the clone asked Putin if he had a lot of lookalikes. Bots are taking to the US campaign trail too. Democratic candidate for Congress in Pennsylvania, Shemaine Daniels, is using an AI-powered robocaller to contact voters.
My name is Ashley, and
She says the bot, dubbed Ashley, doesn't just recite a script, but can tailor its approach to each individual.
If the person answering is kind of going in a direction that's inappropriate, Ashley has the ability to kind of end that conversation. But on our end, we've made sure that she can't tell lies about me. So whatever she shares will be something that is true.
Google says it will limit how much its Bard chatbot has to say about next year's US presidential election. The restrictions will kick in early next year. Facebook owner Meta has already said it will bar political campaigns from using its AI tools. Pope Francis has been thinking about AI too. He has called for a legally binding international treaty to regulate it. The Catholic leader warned of a technological dictatorship threatening human existence. And bankrupt pharmacy chain Rite Aid has been banned from using AI facial recognition to watch customers for 5 years. U.S. watchdogs say it used the tech to identify shoplifters, but wrongly tagged some innocent shoppers as criminals.
Moving on, hundreds of children from Gambia to Uzbekistan, including young lives in Indonesia, were poisoned by contaminated medicinal syrups in the past 2 years. The toxic syrup, containing ethylene glycol, damaged their internal organs, leading to deaths and disabilities. Indonesian regulators have identified at least 3 drug makers, including Afi Pharma, responsible for the crisis. Legal actions ensued, with Afi Pharma executives being sentenced to jail. Despite compensation promises from the government, the affected families are struggling with medical bills and demanding further compensation. This contamination represents one of the largest episodes of its kind, also prompting increased regulatory scrutiny across the world. Meanwhile, lupin, a legume from the pea family, emerges as a sustainable alternative to soy for plant protein. Lupin can thrive in diverse climates, demand less intensive agricultural practices, and thus can be a viable option to soy in providing eco-friendly nutrition.
Can lupins replace soy as a more sustainable plant protein? It could, according to food scientists at Australian-based company Wide Open Agriculture, or WOA.
Lupins are sort of the unsung hero, or the unrecognised hero of a new source of plant protein that can rival soy, pea and fava, which are the 3 big incumbents.
Lupins are legumes belonging to the pea family. WOA has been developing methods for extracting the protein and making lupin beans more palatable for various plant-based meat alternatives and dairy substitutes. Protein levels of lupin beans are comparable to soybeans, but it's the environmental benefits of farming lupins that really sets them apart from soy. Ben Cole is the founder of Wide Open Agriculture.
Soy is the behemoth. It is the one that consumers, if they look on the back of pack, they'll be finding soy in most plant-based materials. But consumers are starting to look behind that label and ask questions around how is it produced. Very chemically intensive systems that uses a lot of water.
Environmental groups have questioned the sustainability of soy farming. It has been closely linked to deforestation and monoculture, an agricultural practice that focuses on a single crop at a time. Lupins, on the other hand, thrive in diverse climates and require less intensive agricultural practices than soy. The plant is well suited to marginal lands with little water, reducing pressure on prime agricultural areas and promoting biodiversity. They are also nitrogen-fixing plants, meaning they enhance soil fertility by enriching it with nitrogen, reducing the need for synthetic fertilizers. This reduces the environmental impact of farming, benefits the health of the soil, and fosters sustainable agricultural practices. Haider Al-Ali is a senior food scientist at Wide Open Agriculture.
Food manufacturing companies and scientists around the world, I think, in a race looking for new alternatives, because due to the already updated information about climate change, it is happening, it is a real thing. One of these possible alternatives can be lupin as a solution for this problem.
Western Australia grows about 3/4 of the world's lupins, and wide-open agriculture and the Australian government sees huge potential as the demand for sustainable and plant-based protein sources continues to rise. Jackie Jarvis is the Minister for Agriculture and Food, Forestry and Small Businesses in the Western Australian government.
We know that we're competing with soy, but this is a different market, I think. I think it's that market for people who are looking for that environmentally sustainable product.
Moving on, in Indonesia's Sumatra, hundreds of passengers faced stranded conditions as the Merapi volcano erupted, emitting a thick cloud of ash. The Minangkabau International Airport was closed for safety concerns, fearing that the volcanic ash could pose a threat to aircraft engines. The active volcano erupted in the early morning, projecting ash 300 meters above its crater, as reported by Indonesia's Volcanology and Disaster Mitigation Agency. Standing at about 2,891 meters, Merapi is among Sumatra's most active volcanoes. This eruption follows a recent large-scale event earlier in the month that tragically claimed the lives of 23 climbers and adventure enthusiasts. Meanwhile, in the realm of luxury jewelry, some buyers value pieces crafted from lab-grown gems and recycled materials. Designs like the poppy earrings made from recycled aluminium reflect this emphasis on sustainability, featuring lab-grown diamonds and pearls grown through regenerative framing and farming.
6 of these can turn into an ingot like this, that can then be cast into a pair of earrings like this.
These poppy earrings are made of recycled aluminum. They were crafted by London-based designer Annabella Chan, whose jewelry designs rely on lab-grown diamonds, recycled aluminum, and pearls grown using regenerative farming techniques. Chan says she chose her materials after witnessing what she said were poor working conditions in diamond mines in Sri Lanka.
And that for me was a life-changing experience. So seeing the conditions of how people worked and how little they were paid, and yet these are some of the most precious and valuable commodities there are in the world, just didn't make any sense to me.
In order to make diamonds, Chen relies on suppliers who use technology to capture carbon dioxide emissions that would otherwise be released into the atmosphere.
Diamonds are made of carbon, sapphires are made of corundum, which is an aluminium oxide, rubies are aluminium oxide with chromium. So once you know what things are made of, you can sort of work backwards. So laboratory-grown gemstones are about mimicking the conditions within the earth where gemstones are formed, but in a controlled environment.
In November, the young designer won the Game Changer category at the British Luxury Awards. Chan's company does not give sales figures, but says it has seen strong demand since the COVID-19 pandemic. The lab-grown jewelry market has seen annual growth of 20% in recent years, driving global profits to $15 billion. That's according to Edan Golan Diamond Research and Data. As more producers enter the market, the price of lab-grown diamonds has fallen, and brands are looking to differentiate themselves, especially through designs. Joshua Brahman is the head of diamonds at Pandora, a major retailer of lab-grown diamonds.
Customers buying lab-grown diamonds can enter for a variety of reasons. Maybe for them, the sustainability factor is important. Maybe it's the price-value equation, right? In our case, we believe it's both of those things, but also that we offer really an array of proprietary and very interesting, meaningful, emblematic designs.
For Chan, it's about creating a fine jewelry brand that's highly crafted, but also sustainable and accessible for a broader customer base.
I think working with laboratory-grown diamonds and laboratory-grown color stones for me really brings a glimpse into the future of what fine jewelry looks like, because I think it is about a celebration of science and art together.
And in the run-up to Christmas, in Utah, wildlife biologists are using helicopters for an annual airlift to ensure the health of local deer. Approximately 1,200 deer are relocated for health assessments and equipped with GPS monitors. These evaluations involve checking the protective body fat levels accumulated over the summer. This initiative is part of a broader effort to support native mule deer addressing challenges like urbanization, disease, predators, wildfires, and extreme weather conditions. The program helps monitor and manage the deer population to uphold their overall well-being amidst various environmental pressures. Well, Shah Rukh Khan's Donkey has already hit the cinemas. That's all people can talk about. In the meantime, let us show you a News 9 Plus documentary explaining how many Indians are taking illegal routes to cross into countries such as the US, the UK and Canada, all in hope of realizing their dreams. That's all the time we have for you in this edition of Top Stories. Thanks for watching this episode. Catch this teaser.
उन्होंने मुझे बताया था कि आप चिंता मत करो, मैं आपको भरोसा दिलाता हूँ, फिर ये मेरा परिवार सब खत्म हो गया।
In a disturbing discovery on the Minnesota-Canada border, police found the bodies of 4 family members who they say froze to death.
Sent shockwaves across 2 continents and left many people asking a simple question: why?
प्रवीण भाई ने मुझे बताया था कि मैं घूमने के लिए, मेरा वीज़ा आया है कनाडा का, तो मैं घूमने के लिए जा रहा हूँ। फिर बाद में जो उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि मेरी निकुल से बात हुई है और वो मुझे यहाँ से अमेरिका क्रॉसिंग करवाना का बोल रहा था। तो 2-3 दिन बाद प्रवीण भाई का फ़ोन आया और वो बोले कि यहाँ पे जो सचिन है उनका फ़ोन आया था, तो वो बोल रहा है कि यहाँ से लाइन क्लियर नहीं हो रही, तो अभी आपको बोट में जाना पड़ेगा। फिर मैंने निकुल को फ़ोन किया कि आप, अपनी बात तो हुई है टैक्सी में, तो ऐसे बोट में ले जाएगा तो हमको नहीं जाना है, जो जहाँ से लाया था वहाँ छोड़ दे। तो वो निकुल बोला कि प्रवीण भाई को बात हो गई है और 6-7 मिनट का रास्ता है, जब आप आंखें पलक के बंद करोगे तब वहाँ पे पहुँच जाओगे। लेकिन जब बैठे तब मेरी भतीजी का फ़ोन मेरे पे आया था और वो बोल रही थी कि अंकल मैं जब बोट में बैठ गए हैं और वो बोट है वो जो बार बार बंद हो जाती है, तभी मैंने उनको पूछने की कोशिश की कि कैसे होता है, कैसे क्यों बंद हो जाती है, लेकिन तभी फ़ोन मेरा कट गया था और फिर मुझे कुछ उसको कांटेक्ट नहीं हुआ है। फिर सुबह में तो न्यूज़ द्वारा, मीडिया द्वारा मुझे पता चला कि वो बोट में से 4 गुजराती लोग थे, ऐसा हुआ है, फिर मालूम पड़ा।
In today's time and date, there's a big community, there's a diaspora which is settled already in the US. So when, like right now, if I were to say that it's because of economic conditions that a person is moving to the US, no, this region of northern Gujarat is at par with Gujarat, with rest of India. So that's not the case. But probably it's just because somebody in the past has done this, there's someone who's made it big, who is motivating today's youngsters to go there.
A
According to the UN's International Organization for Migration, the number of international migrants around the world had touched 281 million in 2020.
और वहाँ से एजेंट लोग इतने, उनके कनेक्शन इतना हर जगह पे फैला हुआ है, वो एक दूसरे से ऐसे बोलते थे, पहले बोलते लीगल भेजेंगे आपको, बाद में आप उनको इलीगल वे से आप किसी तरह बसों में भेजते हैं, या किसी की शक्ल मिलती पासपोर्ट को दे देते हैं, ऐसे भेज देते हैं। जैसे जैसे वो पैसे ले लेते हैं, अगर लड़के जो भी जा रहा है उसका कुछ भी हो, वो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं होगी।
हाँ देखिए, समटाइम्स हमारे पास कई तरह की क्वेरीज आती हैं। अब कुछ लोग आते हैं कि 10th करा होता है उन्होंने, एंड दे आस्क कि हमें आप डॉक्यूमेंट्स आप बनाइए, फेक डॉक्यूमेंट्स आप लगाइए और हमें बस बाहर भेज दीजिए। इवन कि वो लोग बहुत अच्छा हमें पे करने को भी रेडी होते हैं, अच्छा पे करना चाहते हैं। जैसे बैंक का है, कुछ बैंक की स्टेटमेंट किसी की निकाल ली, उसको एडिट कर दिया और बच्चों की डिग्रीज़ को चेंज कर दिया। अब कुछ यूनिवर्सिटीज़ हैं, हमने सुना है जैसे स्टूडेंट्स आके बोलते हैं कि इतने पैसे ले लो और हमें आप यूनिवर्सिटीज़ का डिग्री बना दो या डिप्लोमा बना दो, जिसके बिहाफ पे हम अपना आगे अप्लाई कर सकें। पहले तो स्टूडेंट्स को नहीं पता लगता, पर जब वो आफ्टर वीज़ा जब वो रीच कर जाते हैं और जब परमिट होता है उनका और PR के लिए अप्लाई करना, उस टाइम पे ये चीज़ें सामने आती हैं फिर कि जो फेक चीज़ें हैं वो कहीं ना कहीं तो पकड़ी जाएंगी ना।
मेरे एजेंट ने मुझे बताया कि अगर मैं आइल्स क्लियर कर लूँ, उसके बाद मैं अपना वर्क वीज़ा अप्लाई करूँगी। आप जब मेरा वीज़ा लग जाएगा देन वो बताएंगे कि कौन सा काम करना है आप।